Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. It is the 4th day in the month of April 2023. Am I Makinde?
The nation's commercial capital beckons. Join us on the money side of things. Why did I say that? I'm kind of
Yes, it's still early in the beautiful month of spring. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
And from the Federal Capital Territory, thank you for staying with us. I'm Nel Taigbe. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Well, it would seem like it's the battle of capitals.
Oh, yeah.
The one in Nigeria, well, he's just spoken about that one. Lagos is a former capital. Abuja is the current capital in Nigeria.
Yeah. So let's go to a commercial capital. I mean, there's Washington, D.C. in the U.S., but then there's a commercial capital, New York. That's where a lot of things are happening today. So we're starting outside the country and maybe try to learn some lessons, if you will, or make of it what you will. And we're talking about the case involving former U.S. President Donald Trump. Well, he's expected to actually turn himself into law enforcement today, which is Tuesday. Of course, it's still Monday in the U.S., sort of, but he's expected to turn himself into law enforcement today to face more than 30 criminal charges in a Manhattan court following last week's grand jury indictment. This is breaking records in a lot of ways. The first former U.S. or sitting U.S. president to actually be indicted in such manner. And just to run you through, just in case you've not been following this actually ties back to that 2016 case which the district attorney's office has been investigating. Remember that his alleged role in the hush money payment scheme involving adult film star Stormy Daniels. And yes, it dates back to 2016 presidential election. So as you see now, we understand that the former U.S. president is in the Trump Tower, is prepping himself to perhaps turn himself in. And, you know, this is the first time, again, that you'll have a major case like this involving the Secret Service, because there were questions about whether or not he'll be handcuffed, whether or not there'll be a mugshot taken of him. But the lawyers are saying this has never happened before. They have never had to deal with a case involving someone who has Secret Service protection, you know, like a former U.S. president. So they're not sure if he will go the normal route and all of that. It's lots of lessons to learn for nations across. Yes, there's a politicking angle, there's the institution angle and all of that, but also is how this will affect the coming elections. Over 70 million Americans voted for the former president. 74 million voted for him the last time out, 2020. Looks like he has a bid. Will that affect his numbers going forward? But more importantly is the lessons a lot of people are looking to this to learn and say, okay, it will be interesting if this were to happen in another climate.
Such as Africa?
Such as, I mean, Europe. I mean, there are other countries,
Why did you avoid Africa? Let's talk about Africa.
I mean, it's a global thing. Yes, Africa, Europe, really everywhere. That there needs to be that uniformity. If things are found to have been done wrong, then nobody should be above the law, as we always say, guys.
At the start of the conversation, you know, the sticking point for us was the strength of institutions. So whether it was when his organization was fingered in a tax fraud and was asked to pay 1.6 million naira by Supreme Court in the U.S., there was no technicality. So we're coming back home now. So he had to comply. You know, the individual in his company who was tried and sentenced to 5 months in jail, I think, had to comply. Whether it's this case or also the operative words is he's turning himself in. So we see the strength of institutions at work. And you said something earlier about, you know, the undecidedness, so to speak, of the institutions there, the representative of the institutions. Are they going to handcuff him because they've never had to deal with this kind of case before, where it's a former president that has been indicted? What will this do now to the office of the presidency in America? Don't forget, he's a former president, and he has a 2024 White House bid. So if we see an indicted president in handcuff and he has a White House bid, what's going to happen to that office? The image of that office, what's going to happen? What implications does it have? And we all saw the groundswell of opposition in the United States, or the division, so to speak. I think there was a balance, because for me, Trump is the most vilified American president in history.
And he still has that support.
That's
74 million people voted for him.
That's debatable, because there's another side of the divide, that believes that, he's a great American president. He fulfilled his promises. There's another side that, thinks that the weight of, baggage of the office of the American president at the time of, Trump's presidency was a bit too much. So what's going to happen to it as a result of this indictment? I think we're waiting to see it during this 2024 White House bid. Is it going to survive this? Well, let's keep our fingers crossed.
Well, he's expected to be granted bail, of course, self-recognizance. He's known, right? He doesn't need to submit any bail conditions, because himself alone, and he's surrounded by Secret Service. And he said he will plead not guilty. And it's important to know that he trusts the institutions as well. So he's surrendering himself, saying, well, he's expected to surrender himself. We don't know if that might change in the coming hours. So he's planned to do that because he trusts the institutions to do the right thing.
But don't forget that he also says that he's being persecuted,
exactly.
That it's
so
all politics. It's being witch hunted, yeah.
Nyota?
If one of the things he posted as a former U.S. president, one of the things he posted on his social media platform before he went out there was, to New York, to make America great again. So he still has hope in the fact that he can make America great again. But moving from there to the matter at hand is the fact that we're talking about building institutions that would outweigh and outlive individuals. It's really interesting that this kind of history is being made in the U.S., but something of the sort happened here on the African continent. The former South African president, Jacob Zuma, went to jail for 15 months for contempt of court. And then after that sentence, after he finished that term in prison, he again was sent back to jail for another matter, all somewhat related. So when we build institutions, the nation thrives because the institutions are standing, not because individuals are doing whatever it is that they do. But when it is known that institutions can be trusted, then you find individuals yielding themselves to those institutions for the purpose of truth to prevail. Now, this matter, whether he's going to plead guilty or not guilty, is painting a picture of trust, as you already said, Coyote, in the institution. So I'm going to surrender myself before a judge for whatever reason, whether it's to campaign or whether to paint a picture that I am innocent, and then also raise support for his ambition, his presidential ambition in 2024. Well, that's out there for the jury to decide. But it's the picture of trust in the institutions. What can we do back home? What can we pull from this? What lessons can we draw from this in strengthening our institutions to the extent that when you're indicted in any way, or whether you're indicted or not indicted, but the fact that your name is mentioned in any matter, you can step forward and say, hey, I trust that these institutions, with the evidence I have, I can come up and prove my innocence. Or because this institution is strengthened and is standing and is independent. I mean, yesterday we were talking about management of public funds. How is that working out, where you find state governors or governors at whichever level, or leaders, depriving institutions like the Office of the Auditor General the independence that they need to be able to oversight their use or management of public funds? What does that say of our institutions? Does that speak well of us? Does that speak well of you as a leader, when you know that if I give this to this office that is oversighting me, they'll have more strength, they'll have more bite, then I will not be able to step out of line. Therefore, I will not give it to them. That doesn't speak well of us. That doesn't strengthen the institution. So in doing that, in saying this, I am hoping that our leaders and all of us here can also learn to strengthen the institutions, so that because when the institutions are strengthened, we as individuals and the nation as a whole is strengthened going forward.
There are so many lessons, as Kari started by saying, on this program this morning concerning this matter. I I remember interviewing for Sunrise Daily, Philip Asiodu, who is what he was once referred to as a super pansec. And one of the things that he said was that when the military took over in the 70s, forgive me guys, I have to go back in time.
We're used to it.
When the military, took over and the civil service was still in its onions, they stood up to the military and said, no, there are some things that are done in certain specific ways, and there are some things that couldn't be done in any particular way. And when the military wasn't really comfortable with that, I think that's the genesis of why the super pansec at the time were all retired. And there are those who contend that that is part of the reason why the institutions have become quite weak these days. So, because they were retired with nothing to fall back to. That's the popular opinion that is being held about that now. Who is going to strengthen the institutions, guys? It's individuals. Who is going to bail the cart? I guess that's what we have to debate and find out exactly who and how we're going to get to that, because it's been quite some years now. Now, as far as the United States of America is concerned, the institutions are strong enough to take on anyone. And I'm happy, Kayode, that you mentioned the fact that institutions are now contending with each other, not sure whether or not, because, hey, there's the one institution protecting this particular person, the former president of the U.S., who is being indicted, and there is another institution that is going to stand in defense of the law. How would... Bring it home. How would this happen in Nigeria? A question for us to contend, to debate on, and we will definitely get there. When we do, what will trump each other? Is it the institutions that will trump politics, or the other way around? No, I didn't. That's Trump came right. Not quite well, but...
Pun intended.
That's just the way it is. Let's switch over to the papers and see what we have.
Taking it back home, seeing how we can strengthen our own institutions. So whether it be the judiciary, whether it be the security agencies, we need to start from somewhere. So it seems as if, one of the first few institutions that we'll start with will be the security agencies. This is just picking up from the big story on the front page: security agencies and, of course, political parties. Gunshots in Port Harcourt as APC, PDP supporters clash. Let's take a look at the riders over inspection of electoral materials. And listen to this one. Tonya Cole escapes being lynched. I believe that's the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State. PDP accuses APC of instigating violence. You'll find all the details on page 15. And of course, you can also catch that story on our YouTube channel. Just take a pushback, rewind button, or you search for News at 10. You find all of the details on our YouTube channel as well. Look at the bottom strip of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. You see this one that you would like to look forward to, especially as Nigeria begins to prepare for handover ceremonies. Rep speakership, PDP alliance plot suffers setback. Take a look at the riders. Wike, Ibori, back Wase. North Central deserves slot. Deputy Speaker, my beloved son. That's ascribed to the former governor of Ogun State, I believe, and APC chieftain or Shoba. You find all of those details on the inside page, page 2 to be precise. Just one more story before we exit the Nigerian Tribune. Let's go above the nameplate now to see more